Hey guys, welcome to the Girl Gang podcast. Today we have Miss London Kaye, and I cannot wait to hear all about so much of the yarn that is behind you right now and all of the creativity. London, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, Amanda.
So exciting. Let's jump right in. Tell us who you are, where you are coming in from, and what you do.
My name is London Kaye. I'm coming to you from downtown Los Angeles in my bright and colorful art studio. I make crazy things out of yarn, and it is just a joy. I never thought that I would do this for my job. So every day is filled with new crochet adventures.
New crochet adventures. I feel like it's funny. My husband and I know this is not the same, but my husband and I were just talking about this recently. He is the one in our relationship that knows how to sew, and I don't. And he asked me the other night, did you ever imagine marrying someone who knew how to sew and you didn't? I was like, I never thought about it. I figured I would probably have to learn later in life, but now I don't because you do. So,
a wonderful skill, sewing, I've got to say. In my
yeah.
relationship, I am the sewer, but untraditionally, I am also the tech girl. I like fixing computers,
So funny.
phones, all the things. I worked at the Apple store, so I've got that
I love it.
unconventional side.
Oh my gosh, how was working at the Apple store? Was it just bonkers?
Bonkers. It was in New York City, the store on 14th Street and 9th Avenue. And you get customers from all around the world, and you're dealing with
Gosh.
new issues, and it's great though. It's retail, but it's Apple, so can't complain.
It's different. It's a different kind of retail for
Definitely.
sure. um, right off the bat, who are some of your favorite artists? I would love to know.
I'm a classic kind of a gal. I mean,
Yeah.
Picasso is the most incredible, probably my favorite artist. I went to the museum he has in Barcelona, Spain, and I just love how
Wow.
diverse he was. Yes, he painted, but he also did pottery and used other mediums, and that's what really makes me love his work so much.
I love it. It sounds like you've traveled the world quite a bit. What is that maybe your favorite museum, or what's your favorite like art exhibit or museum you've ever been to?
I think that is definitely up there. I've got to say, it was fantastic. I also, even in LA, there's a Broad Museum, and it's very like modern and contemporary, and they always have cool exhibits, and it's like 10 minutes away from me. So I've got to put that one on the list of my favorite spots as well.
I love it. Well, okay, so you are queen of crochet and a street artist, if you will, and you've done so many interesting things. And it's just like I love meeting people like you that are so eclectic, and you just have like all of these skills that I don't have, and I probably never will have, and that's fine. How did you get started as an artist?
Well, I never really thought that's where my life path would go. Like I mentioned, I was working at the Apple store, selling computers, fixing phones, and it was a few years in where I was like, I thought I'd work my way up, but instead it was like kind of sad. I was like, oh, I don't see myself progressing really in the company. I grew up dancing, more of a creative person. So I started just making lists of all the things I love to do, and crocheting was always at the top of that list. And one night, an artist by the name of Olet came into the store, head to toe crochet. She had a really crazy crochet bag, and I was like, wow, I didn't know you could make anything besides like scarves or sweaters or things like
Yeah.
that. So she left the store, and I like jumped on one of the computers there and Googled her name. And through the search results, I found something called yarn bombing. And it was 2013. And at the time, there were just like a lot of trees wrapped in yarn. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I could take a scarf I made and wrap it around a tree just for fun and see what happens. And I just lit up. I went crazy after my first tree. I loved it right away.
After your first tree, how funny. Hold on, I'm going to pause really quick. So, your first tree. That's so wait, how does that work? Do you not get in trouble for doing that?
Well, I started out at the time wrapping trees in my neighborhood. I thought it would come down,
Okay,
someone would take it down. It was a tree like
sure.
literally outside of my step. And I always thought like in New York
Okay.
there's so much going on. I'm putting up
No one's
yarn.
gonna care.
Yeah, and I always have scissors with me. I'll cut it down if it's really a problem. So I was surprised it stayed up. And like my neighbors, one lady stopped me right away and she was like, after maybe it being up for a week, she was like, me and my granddaughter stop at your tree every morning and it makes
Oh,
our day. And I was like, oh, I love this.
that's so sweet.
It's so sweet.
So, with your art and what you do, what's like your biggest mission and your desire? I mean, I would imagine it's moments like those for those people who stop and like admire your tree. That's it's so neat.
It's definitely the bringing unexpected joy to people's day because street art, it's so cool. It stays up, it comes down, it changes with the times, and it's cool to be a part of that world. Like some people will be on their phones texting and won't notice that there's like a crochet dragon
Yeah,
breathing fire, like crocheted fire down the side of a block on a chain link.
yeah.
Whereas, like, other people
Oh my
run up to it,
gosh.
touch it, want to hug it. Like, it's just cool to see
Yeah.
people's reactions.
So, what's some of your favorite street art that you've done?
Well, one of my favorites for sure is like a crocheted water pipe. So it looks like water
Oh,
is
how
leaking
funny.
out of a pipe on the side of the road. And for about a year, I would switch out all the different crochet that would come out of this one pipe. I once had like a whale tail coming out of it, a snake slithering out, multicolored yarn of all colors, everything. So that's for sure one of my favorites. I also did a collection of crocheted girls wearing looks that were taken off the
How
cover of
fun.
Vogue magazines, right, starting from 1910, going to modern day. So there were like 12,
Oh my
fashion
gosh.
on a fence in Soho, and that for sure holds a special place in my heart.
Oh my gosh. I imagine you. How long did you live in New York?
I lived in New York for 10 years. I went to college there for dance
Oh my
and
gosh.
stayed for a very long time.
I imagine you had a lot of like fashion high end influence in those times.
For sure. I've always just like loved, so cliche, but like Sex in the City. And like,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and growing up
Devil Wears Prada.
exactly. It's just like fun. And I always like to look at like a lot of times see things and that will inspire my art. So for
Hmm.
sure getting to use, high fashion as inspiration. It was a fun thing to touch into.
I love it. So, like you said earlier, crochet, or like I figured, can't you just make like gloves and a scarf or whatever? And people just, you see people sitting in a chair in their living room, and it's something you do to pass the time, or like, your mom crochets or your grandma or whatever. But you turn this into a full-time business, and it is your art, literally. And so I would love to hear also, you posted something about Free Britney. I
I
want to talk
did.
about that. But when I do interviews, I always pull up people's Instagram pages while we're talking. Because there's just so many interesting things we can talk about. But how did you turn this into like what you do full time? I think we hear a lot about like, oh, well, I was a photographer, did some things for friends, and then I got a lot more clients. This is completely different than that. So I'd love to hear your story.
Yeah, I was hanging up art, just putting it out there, asking nothing in return. Truly, I love to crochet so much that making things was just like a joy. It was a great hobby to have before work, after work, on my lunch breaks. And then so I would always hang a tag and I had a website and my Instagram on it. And right, not right away, but like I would say after about a year of doing it, different brands and companies started reaching out. Pretty early on, Starbucks reached out to me because they had seen A ballerina I did around a nutcracker ballerina on a fence in Brooklyn, and they reached out looking for an art installation. And also delivery.com reached out pretty early, where I crocheted an
Oh my
entire
gosh.
head to toe jumpsuit covered in yarn. And I never expected to be able to support myself doing this. So it was
Yeah.
like a slow progression. But after about a year
Right.
or 2 years, I was able to go part time at work. After about another year, I was able to quit and do this full time.
Wow.
I got a crazy job doing an entirely crocheted billboard in Times Square for Miller Lite beer. And
Oh
all
my gosh.
these projects have like quick turnarounds, but I always said, like, I don't want to quit my job because of the health insurance or this or that,
Right.
a
That's
million
a big one.
excuses. Right. But finally it got to the point where I was like, okay, I can do this. And that was at the end of 2015. And I've been supporting myself doing those large scale commercial projects ever since.
Oh my goodness. So now I imagine, is it still just you, or do you have assistants or, a team of people? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I have a team of people that help me crochet
Amazing.
because it does take a while to make things.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna say.
so it's really amazing to be able to work with different crocheters on these certain projects. At different times, like I've had an assistant who helps me out with some of just
Mhm.
like the day to day work. But more or less, it's just been me kind of running everything. And you got to wear a lot of hats. That's for
You
sure.
do.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So everybody, we all say we wear so many hats. We fill so many of the roles within a business. You start a business and you don't realize you are the marketing department and the advertising department and the financial department and the HR department. Like, you are everything. And so how did you go from doing some of these things on the side, working at Apple, and then how did you figure that out for yourself? Because I know a lot of people, we do a lot of research and we Google and we watch other people on Instagram or Pinterest or read their blogs or listen to their podcasts. But what was your journey to figure out how to manage all of this?
I think something that really helped me out is when I did decide to start doing this full time. I
Mm-hmm.
I come from such a creative family. Like my dad's a writer, my mom's an artist, my sister's an actress, and like no, I couldn't really go to anybody when it did come to like the finance and business side of everything. So I did position myself with an accountant and a bookkeeper that I could trust. And even though it is something that requires, you have to pay them, it kept all of that so much more in line for me and made sure I was doing all of that correctly and on time, that it did allow me to free myself up to focus more on the creative side of it all. And managing all projects that come in, I mean, I just say yes to everything and then figure it out. I don't know,
I would.
that's maybe not the best way to go about it, but with different crochet jobs, like the Gap reached out wanting an entire bus wrapped in yarn that could drive. I had never even, you can't Google that. So, like, saying it was so hard, but like overcoming those really big obstacles.
Wow.
A lot of people may quit or give up. Instead, it's like, all right, let me power through this one, and then after that, now I've wrapped three more vehicles, and it was so much easier than the first.
Once you figure it out, you're like, I can do this again.
Yeah, yeah. So each
Oh my God.
project that came in, I definitely learned from and still am learning from. But yeah, also following through and sticking to a
Mm.
timetable. Like if you promise
Hmm.
something to someone, I think especially at the beginning, if you can get tasks done on time, and
Yeah.
that's really important. It shows credibility, and so I made sure to do
Yeah.
that too.
And just communicating expectations, because one thing, and then I have another question about your team, but how did you prepare yourself, or did you, or was it just like, on the job learning to work with large brands and corporations like Starbucks and Gap and all, and what did you say, Bud Light?
Miller Lite, but
A
yeah.
Miller Lite. Oh, my bad. No, not Bud Light. Miller Lite. Don't kill me, Bud Light. But how did you prepare yourself? Because that's a different ballgame than just someone saying, "Hey, will you make this thing for my sister?"
Totally, especially because I think a lot of people in like the arts or anything where you're making something yourself, putting like a high enough value on the work you're
To
creating,
yourself.
is, I mean, these brands have budget, so you want to
Yeah.
make sure that you're like putting out numbers that aren't like so greatly underneath anything that they would
Right.
offer you if you didn't put the price out first. So coming up with a strategy to figure out what costs would be, like what are my exact numbers when it comes to an installation, the supplies, the just knowing exactly what things are going to cost on your end. And
Yeah.
I was lucky, my neighbor at the time worked
Oh,
in
wow.
commercial advertising. And so a couple of those early jobs, he helped me figure out like a pricing strategy. And
That's
I think that
awesome.
was really important, just to work with them. And then also being able to do it with such quick timelines, being able to pull
Yeah.
people in, other crocheters, and manage a team
Yeah.
of crocheters to get things done. Um,
Yeah.
the two biggest things to start working like that.
So you mentioned a minute ago, the first thing you hired was an accountant and a bookkeeper. And you're like, although it's like, it kind of sucks, now you gotta pay those people and it's an expense. You really learned how this is an investment and they can actually help you continue to grow because now you have more time back in your life. What was the mindset shift around that for you?
I I've always, I guess growing up, money was like a factor in my life, thinking about, I don't know, I always wanted a steady paycheck like I had with Apple. I liked every 2 weeks getting paid, having money put aside for a 401k. It was really like I enjoyed that. So I think wanting to continue it, it wasn't even like a question. Like I ended Apple at the end of 2015, and by January 2016, I had set myself up with the the financial things in place, because for me it was just that important. I didn't want to go about it any other
Yeah.
way. I don't know why, but I'm glad I did.
No, absolutely. And I think that's one thing I've been talking a lot about with my coaching clients is yes, maybe they're at the point where they need to hire their first virtual assistant or someone to do the admin stuff because they have all these clients and there's only a certain amount of projects you can take on before like you're capped. And so you have to enlist help. You got to find some troops and get people to help you. So this is very different than, hiring a social media manager or something to help you with the other things of your business, but how did you outsource your actual craft? I have a friend, and if you don't know her, you guys should connect because you would get along and you guys align so well. Allie Koch, Allie K Design is her brand. She does.
I know Allie Kay.
Yes.
We
So
work together.
Yes, Allie is a good friend of mine, and it makes me think of Allie because she was doing all these murals and billboards and offices and tunnels and whatever. And you only have two hands, and you're gonna get carpal tunnel and arthritis. And so she enlisted her mom and her husband, and she has assistants that she's trained in her style. So tell us about how you outsourced your actual craft because that's hard to do.
Sure. Well, working with these big projects, I usually start out in working in sketches. So people will come to me with some ideas. I'll sketch out a few options. We go back and forth until we all agree on what is going to be crocheted. From there, I break things down into very basic shapes, things that are easy to crochet. Everything that I do is single crochet, which is the most basic stitch. I was never like crazily trained to make these things, so nothing is too complicated. But if I need you know, 50 5 foot by 5 foot navy blue squares, I can enlist people to crochet these pieces. And then once I get them back from them, I can assemble them and do more of the
Got it.
artsy and complicated stuff
Hmm.
myself.
Yeah, the stuff that has your flair and your personal
Right.
touch.
I could not outsource anyone to crochet my 12 girls from Vogue on a chain link fence. Like,
Right.
maybe I could enlist them to help me out with 12 circles for their heads, but
Right.
the details of it, I definitely wouldn't be able to get someone else to do.
And I think that's the thing. I think when we're thinking about outsourcing or getting help and things like that, we're like, well, I can't clone myself. We don't always need clones of ourselves. It's like, what could I have someone else do? Or what's something that someone else can do that it doesn't require me or that's very teachable, right? Like bookkeeping and taxes. Someone else can do that, right? Social media. If you work on the strategy with them and your personal brand and things like that, that can be given to someone else. And I think people get really stuck on, well, no one can do what I do. Well, that's very true. That's why people hire you and pay you, but we can outsource in other ways. So I love that.
Yeah, it can be so hard though, especially
I know.
like, no one's going to do it exactly how you want it done, like
Yeah.
how you would do it. But, it's when you're put and forced, sometimes I almost feel like you need to be
Mm.
given that, like, you have to do it in order to be like, oh, this works. It's almost like how now people can work from home. It's like
Hmm.
not until they were forced to put them at home did businesses realize, oh, we don't need to do
We can do this.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How did you, what's maybe some advice you have for people who are outsourcing and feeling like, well, no one can do what I do? How did you kind of manage those people that you bring on for projects and hires to, stay in line with your brand and things like that?
I think just like being available. I really am into communicating. And if I see something that's being done incorrectly, building up the courage to have maybe those difficult conversations of like, hey, I
Yeah,
need
that's
you to
hard.
do this again, or I'm not going to be able to use it. But it's worth it because then you don't find yourself holding a grudge, being like, oh, I paid for something that I'm just going to have to remake myself.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
but communicating for sure and just being like a supportive boost of morale. Like, you're doing great.
Yeah.
We've got this. Like, don't be scared. Like, it's all going to work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you approach those hard conversations? Because I mean, I've had those conversations and I've had to let a couple of people go because it just wasn't working out and it wasn't a good fit. Um, but how did you, because it's really nerve wracking. It's like, I don't want to be this like mean boss. None of us are, we never signed up for that. And so, but if you don't, it is going to cost you time and money. And if you don't get it done correctly, you are going to have to redo it yourself or find someone else to do it. So, how did you kind of work up that courage and continue to also be positive with them?
I think it definitely took time to get more comfortable with it, but just through experience of like not saying things, and dealing with it, it's like, oh, it's better to do it sooner rather than later, so you don't keep digging that same hole, and then the conversation's going to be harder, even if it's one day later, 1 week later. If you're going to have to be dealing with it, might as well try to do it as quick as possible. But also, I don't play sports, so it's like two strikes, you're out.
I
Like,
didn't either.
if you one time, maybe, like for me, if you spilled coffee on a piece of crochet and still give me a white crochet square back, okay, maybe that happens once. But if again something isn't done correctly, then I don't go any
Yeah.
further. Like, if it's not working,
Yeah.
you just have to
Yeah.
move on to someone
Yeah.
else.
You do. And it's so funny. You're like, well, you just have to move on. You're very nice about it.
Yeah.
Oh man. Let's talk about this Free Britney I'm assuming this was just like a passion project, or what? Tell me about how this happened, because this was not long ago. You put this up a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah, this one up. Yeah, I think 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks
I still
ago.
do a ton of street art for fun. Like, street art is such a part of my business. That's how, people find me, and it's great marketing. And, I get to make things just that I'm passionate about. So Brittany, obviously, has been
Mm-hmm.
part of my life since I was very young. And so
Same.
I would say, I mean, I love making things that make people smile, but to be able to have like
Mm-hmm.
a deeper purpose as well with like, fighting a cause or making a statement of some kind, is something that I always love to make. So being able to crochet a free Brittany, it's huge. Each letter,
It is huge.
it's big. Brittany's are like 6 feet tall, and I have 5 Brittany's rocking iconic looks from different videos she was in.
Different fantastic music videos.
Yes, but here's the crazy story. So, okay, I try to get permission for all the art I hang up, but for this one, I couldn't find the perfect spot. But there was this old museum that was open last year, the Britney Zone, and it had
Yeah, tell me about that.
yeah. So it was a building where it was like one of those, and these are always so silly, but like where you go in and take Instagram photos with different like
It's just
Britney.
a pop up for yeah.
Yeah, and like apparently the die-hard Britney fans were not a fan of this museum because it was like the conservatorship selling out and making money off of Britney. So I did a little location scouting, and I saw that building with a pink wall, and I was like, the Britneys must go here.
This is it. The Britneys must go.
Yeah, so I tried to get in touch with the building, couldn't find a number, couldn't make contact. And so I hung them up in a way that wouldn't damage the building. I was there for like 4 hours hanging up my free Britneys. No one stopped me. I made friends with the homeless gentleman on the corner. He said
Wonderful.
he'd look after it for me. He'll make sure, if anything happens, I'll
So
like,
nice.
perfect. These Britneys stay. And then the very next day through social media, people started tagging me that the Britneys are coming down. So, of course, I had to rush over there, and Britneys are down. No one's around. And I'm like, where did they go? I must save Britney. And sure enough, there was a dumpster behind the building, and I peeked my head in, started tapping some bags, and noticed one squishy bag with some like shocking pink shining through. And sure enough, I find all the letters with the Britneys underneath, recover them all, and now they're hung out right outside my window where I can keep an eye on the Britneys every day. So they changed location, but Britney's up.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
This is so crazy. But it's like, I'll just ask for forgiveness later. I'm just going to take a chance. Whatever.
Yeah. And also like street art, that's why it's great to take a good photo, share it.
Yep.
Street art isn't going to last for forever. It's definitely a hard part of it, but you have to set it, whoever takes it loves it so much they can't live without it. But I knew the Britneys were not that. I knew something was up. So that's why I found it.
I know we're going to put this on YouTube, and so people can see this video, but this is what it looks like if you guys are looking for it on her feed. I love it. I love it so much. You also have a 30-day challenge, yes, or a 30-day course. Tell us about this program you made.
I do. It is a labor of love. It's a master class on how to turn your passion into your career. And it gives you advice when it comes to the creative side of things using, power of positive thinking and setting goals and working through them along with the business side and those realities of your own business. And it's a 30-day challenge where every day you just, even if it's only for a few minutes, you do something that you love. Because truly, if you love it enough, good things will come. And I think that the most important thing in following your passion and just following through is really being able to be like, okay, if I had to do this every day for 12 hours a day, like you have to love doing it. And
Yeah.
it's fun and short videos each day. And it really is a great way to kind of give you that little nudge in a creative direction if you're feeling stuck right now.
I love it. Well, tell us what's coming up next for you. Do you have like a fun project that you can talk about? Anything like that?
I mean, there's always so many fun things. I recently organized a mural. It's a 40-foot mural featuring crocheted Kamala Harris. It was up in
Oh
Washington,
my
D.C.
gosh.
It went up on International Women's Day and it was
That's
crocheted.
amazing.
Oh, it was. I have a pin right here. But it was crocheted
Oh
by
my gosh, I love it.
over 150 women across the country. And so it came down last month and it's going back up in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn later this year. So I'm organizing
Wow.
that to go back up. And it's really cool because it's going up at an all-girls school and they're going to incorporate
Oh my
curriculum
gosh.
on leadership and just like programming that goes in line with the mural. So that makes me super happy and all sorts
That's
of other
awesome.
fun things, but I have to keep them under wraps right now.
I know, I figured you have lots of secrets. So you guys go follow Made by London on Instagram to see all of her fun new projects coming up. But if you had to leave, someone with a piece of advice that they could maybe, I think we listen to podcasts and we scroll on social media and there's like things that really stick out to us or things that we walk away with and we remember from time to time. What's something you want to give our listeners today that's just encouraging about being a creative, running a business, and when things get tough, that maybe they can remember on a tough day?
Yeah, I wish I had like a perfect nugget here to share, but what comes to mind and something that I just like repeat in my head over and over when I'm like in the thick of things is you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it on
Yep.
repeat. But also, something interesting I recently learned, I read the book Essentialism, and it's about kind of getting rid of a bunch of the clutter and getting very, very focused in on what are those one, two, or three things about what you do that you really are passionate about, that like really you enjoy, and focusing more time and energy on that. And I loved what they said about if you're having a problem or something that is overwhelming, even if you just fix one thing, in people's mind, that almost fixes 80% of it. Like even some little
Oh,
thing
absolutely.
fixes more trouble than you can imagine. So
Mhm.
starting small on a problem, baby steps, and keeping
Yeah.
it, in line with what you love.
I love it. And I mean, you said you don't have a perfect little nugget. Nobody has perfect little nuggets. And if it is, it's probably very cliche and whatever. But it makes me think of like the little engine that could. Like, I think I can, except for replacing it with like, you can do this, you can do this. um,
Totally.
I
Totally.
love it. And just taking things one step at a time. Because when we are overwhelmed and there's a lot going on and a lot on our to do list, it's like we kind of freeze and we're like, I don't even know where to start. But if we can do one little thing, like you said, it almost helps get the momentum going for everything else. So, London, it was so fantastic to have you on the podcast today. Everybody go follow her, check out her artwork and amazing things that she's doing, her challenge, all those things. And we will see you next time.
See you soon. Thank you so much.